The rope of my hammock had just settled into the familiar hollow of my shoulder when a folded legal envelope appeared above the cedar fence. It was the wrong object for a quiet Sunday afternoon. The old oak leaves moved in a slow green shimmer. Barnaby the orange cat slept beneath the hydrangeas, and the air smelled of warm soil. A legal envelope did not belong in that picture. It hung between the fence boards and the sky like a warning someone had tried to hide in plain sight. Valerie Parker stood on the other side of the fence with one hand wrapped around the envelope and the other gripping the weathered rail. She had a polite smile, but it stopped before reaching her eyes. Her knuckles were pale against the cedar. "Rowan," she said, "do you have a minute?" I sat up. The hammock swung once, and the braided rope dragged softly over the oak branch above me. "I have more than a minute. What happened?" She slid the envelope over the fence. "A developer bought the vacant parcel behind my studio. Their attorney says my driveway, retaining wall, greenhouse, and part of the detached building are across the boundary. Are they starting work? Tomorrow morning? Maybe sooner?" Her thumb pressed into the side of her finger. "They want me to remove the structures or sign an agreement allowing them to use the land. I have not signed anything." "Good." Her eyes lifted. "Good? Good that you have not signed before someone reviews the documents." I walked toward the fence but stopped on my side. "Would you like me to look at the notice with you, or would you rather take it to your attorney first?" The question caught her off guard. She had expected an opinion, perhaps an offer to solve the problem. Instead, I had given the decision back to her. "Look at it with me," she said. "Please, I need to know whether I am frightened for a reason." The notice referred to an old plat, a private site plan, and a boundary line drawn from a monument near the road. It claimed the fence was 4 feet inside the developer's parcel. The language was confident, but confidence was not proof. A modern drawing could not erase a deed, a recorded easement, or an iron monument set before either of us owned a car. "This is a claim," I said. "It is not a certified survey." "Can you tell if they are right?" "I can make a preliminary spatial analysis. I can compare the dimensions, grade, fence, and documents, but I am not a licensed land surveyor, and I cannot certify a legal boundary." The tension around her mouth eased by a fraction. "You are the first person today who has said what you can't do. It saves time later. I thought people in your field liked making everything sound certain." "Only when a client is paying us to make a retaining wall sound more exciting than it is." A short laugh escaped her. It changed the air between us. "What do we do first?" "Preserve every document and photograph the property before anyone moves anything. Then you call a licensed surveyor and a property attorney. We compare the historical plat maps, your deed, the chain of title, and the recorded easement." "We?" "Only if you want me involved." She looked toward the detached building. Its windows were dark, but the structure was solid, with a narrow greenhouse attached to one side. Valerie had built her audio work there over many years. I'd heard her speaking through the open windows on summer evenings, shaping other people's words until every sentence sounded natural. "I want you involved," she said, "but I do not want to become a project you feel responsible for." "Then we will make a plan that does not depend on me doing everything." She nodded. 7 tomorrow? 7, you decide which documents you want to share. If you change your mind, tell me, and I will leave. "All right." "And if the crew arrives early, do not confront them alone. Call the county code office or the sheriff's non-emergency line and let the official process create a record." Her fingers tightened on the cedar rail, then released it. "I can do that." "I know." She turned toward her house. Barnaby lifted his orange head and followed her through the gate on her side of the fence. I returned to the hammock, but I did not lie down. The braided rope hung still beside me. I kept thinking about the envelope above the fence and the way Valerie had said, "I can do that," as if she had been waiting for a useful next step instead of a speech. The next morning, fog pressed low over the street. At 7, I stood on Valerie's porch with a canvas tool bag, a camera, a measuring wheel, a magnetic locator, and a numbered notebook. Before I knocked, Barnaby burst through the rhododendrons and ran toward the road. "Barnaby," Valerie called. She opened the door wearing a gray sweater and practical shoes. Behind her, a folder was open on the entry table. A second envelope lay beside it. "He's been hiding since 6, she said. "The developer's crew brought a backhoe and left it near the rear lot." The yellow machine was visible through the branches. Its arm rose above the fence, motionless but threatening. Orange paint marked the ground near the driveway. "Let's get him before we look at the papers," I said. Valerie took a small container of food from the porch and followed the cat toward the corner. I stayed near the road while she crouched beside a utility trailer where Barnaby had wedged himself between a tire and a stack of boards. "He will not come if I reach for him," she said. "Then do not reach." She sat on the damp pavement and placed the food beside her knee. She talked to Barnaby about the weather, the price of heating, and a neighbor's blue recycling bin that had been in the wrong place for 3 days. Her voice stayed calm. The cat's ears shifted forward. I stood between her and the road. Barnaby crept out. Valerie did not grab him. She let him walk to her hand, then lifted him against her sweater. "He is an orange cat," she said. "It is his legal right to create a delay. That explains the county budget." We returned to the house. Valerie settled Barnaby near the radiator, then brought 2 mugs of coffee to the dining table. "Black?" she asked. "Yes." "No sugar?" "No sugar." "You have the personality of a survey steak." "Survey steaks are dependable. They are also difficult to have breakfast with." She smiled into her coffee. We spread out the notice, her deed, the closing statement, and county plat copies. The oldest map was the color of weak tea. A handwritten note referred to a stone monument near the road and an iron pipe at the northwest corner. "This is the historical plat map from 1978, Valerie said. "The county clerk gave me a scanned copy last night." I traced the written calls without touching the paper. The developer's drawing begins from a modern curb measurement. The old plat begins from a monument. Those are not automatically the same point, so their line can be wrong. It can be unsupported. That distinction matters in court. We made a document list. Valerie called Maya Ortiz, a licensed surveyor, and left a message for Daniel Shaw, a real estate attorney. I photographed every page, the envelope, the date stamp, and the orange paint. That afternoon, the backhoe moved closer. Valerie called the county code office and requested an inspection record. When the officer requested photographs, she sent the files we had taken. "I want to call the developer," she said. "I want to tell him to get off my land." "Do you want me to stand with you while you call? Or do you want to wait for Daniel's advice?" She watched the machine through the window. "Stand with me. I will make the call." She identified herself, stated that no permission had been granted, and asked for written confirmation that no work would begin until an independent survey was complete. When the project manager tried to redirect her, she repeated the request and ended the call. Her hand shook after she put the phone down. She closed it around her mug. "I hated that. You were clear. Clear can still feel terrible. It can..." Barnaby opened one eye from his towel and went back to sleep. Daniel reviewed the notice the following afternoon. He read each page twice before speaking. "The developer is creating urgency," he said. "Urgency is not evidence. We will preserve the documents, request the full title chain, and send a written notice that no entry or removal is authorized. If the crew enters or damages anything, we will seek immediate court relief." Valerie opened her notebook. "What do you need from me?" "A sworn statement describing your ownership, your use of the building, and every communication you received. Also photographs of the fence, driveway, retaining wall, greenhouse, and utility connections." She looked at me. "Can Rowan prepare the site map?" Daniel turned to me. "He can prepare an illustrative map and compare the physical features. It must be labeled non-certified. Maya's survey will control the boundary evidence." "That is exactly what I will do," I said. Maya joined the meeting by video. She explained that she would verify the reference points. Search for the original monument, locate occupation lines, and compare the observations with the recorded documents. After Daniel left, Valerie and I photographed the property. We measured the fence and retaining wall and inventoried the greenhouse panels. One corner of the greenhouse leaned 2 inches because a root had lifted the pavers. "That is not helping our case," she said. "It is helping us describe the case accurately. You are loyal to facts. Facts do not get offended when you notice their weaknesses. People do. People are more complicated than fences. Some fences are complicated. That is why they need surveyors." She handed me the camera. "You are learning." On Thursday, Maya arrived before the crew. Her white truck carried a robotic total station, data collector, magnetic locator, survey nails, and a field book. She introduced herself to Valerie first, then to me. "Daniel said you prepared a preliminary map," she said. "A comparison only? Good. The boundary deserves one person responsible for certifying it." The 3 of us walked the property. Maya set the total station near the road and began taking observations. I recorded the physical features and photographed each setup. Valerie followed the deed calls and checked dates against her folder. Harris Vale, the developer's project manager, crossed to the fence. "This is unnecessary," he said. "Our consultant already established the line." Maya kept her eyes on the data collector. "Then an independent survey will confirm it." Harris looked at Valerie. "You are making this more expensive than it needs to be." She closed her folder. "I'm documenting my property before work begins. If your client believes the line is different, the survey will show it." Harris looked at me. "And you are?" "Preparing a non-certified site comparison at the owner's request. A landscaper playing surveyor." "A surveyor is doing the certification," I said, nodding toward Maya. "I am not claiming her work." Maya raised her eyes. "Please return to your parcel. Mr. Vale." Harris did. At lunch, Valerie brought sandwiches and coffee to the shade of the oak. Maya reviewed coordinates while I ate a tomato sandwich. "You packed coffee for both of us," I said. "You were going to forget to drink anything." "I was not." Maya glanced over her notebook. "He was." Valerie folded her napkin. "I am surrounded by people who collect evidence against me." "Your coffee is evidence in your favor," I said. Maya found the buried iron pipe late that afternoon, exactly where the historical plat described it. She uncovered it carefully without disturbing its position, photographed it, measured it from verified reference points, and entered the observation in her field book. "It is still there," Valerie said. "The marker is still there," Maya answered. "I need to complete the remaining observations before issuing a certified survey." That evening, Valerie and I repaired a loose hinge on the greenhouse. She held the bracket while I replaced the rusted screw. When the door closed properly, Barnaby climbed onto the lower step and inspected our work. "He approves," Valerie said. "He is checking whether the hinge can support his entire personality." Barnaby rubbed against the frame. "A passing grade," she said. The next morning, Daniel sent the written notice to the developer's attorney. It stated that Valerie disputed the claimed boundary, that no consent had been given for entry or removal, and that a licensed survey was underway. For 3 days, the machinery stayed still. On Monday of the second week, Harris sent a new letter. The utility easement serving Valerie's detached building was allegedly abandoned because the water line had not been used during a prior ownership period. He wanted her to sign a release before the next county review. She brought the letter to my porch after sunset. I was sitting in the hammock with the braided rope pressed against my shoulder. She carried 2 mugs of coffee and sat in the porch chair. "They found another way to make the building unusable," she said. "Daniel should review this before we interpret it. He is reviewing it tomorrow." "Then tonight we organize the evidence." She opened the notice. "I've worked in that building for 11 years. I have clients, equipment, a soundproof room, and a greenhouse that protects the rear wall. If they cut the water or take the driveway, the place cannot operate. We will document each connection." You say that as if documentation can stop someone from taking a life apart. It cannot stop every person. It can stop them from pretending their version is the only version. Her fingers moved along the mug. I was 38 when I bought this place. I waited until the loan was manageable. I repaired one room at a time. I wanted one address that did not feel temporary. I looked past her. I understand temporary. My father worked on commercial landscapes. We moved whenever a contract ended. I learned grading plans before I learned how to keep a friend. Every place had good soil somewhere, but none of it was ours. That sounds lonely. It was practical. That is not the same thing. The hammock rope creaked as I shifted. No, it is not. She pushed the letter toward me. Show me how to make the evidence impossible to ignore. We built a utility file. Valerie found water bills, repair invoices, inspection notices, and photographs. I mapped the line to the building, marking every assumption in a different color. She requested certified maintenance records. Daniel requested the recorded easement and the title documents that created it. At 10, Barnaby appeared with a twig stuck to his collar. He's been conducting an investigation, Valerie said. I reached toward the twig, then stopped. Would you like help? She smiled. Yes. I removed it. Barnaby immediately walked away. No, thank you, I said. He is saving it for court. Maya delivered the certified boundary survey during the 3rd week. The cedar fence was not the legal boundary, but it was only 3 inches inside Valerie's property, not 4 feet across it. The driveway, retaining wall, greenhouse, and detached building were on her parcel. The iron pipe matched the historical plat and deed calls. The developer's drawing had begun from the wrong reference point. Daniel explained that the developer could still challenge the survey. He filed a notice of dispute with the county recorder and prepared a petition asking the court to confirm the boundary and protect Valerie from unauthorized entry. He also requested a temporary order protecting the existing utility connection. Valerie prepared her sworn statement at the dining table. When she reached a date she could not verify, she called the recorder instead of guessing. When she described the greenhouse, she attached photographs rather than adjectives. At midnight, she put the pen down and pushed a bowl of warm soup toward me. Eat. I am not hungry. That was not a question. I took the spoon. She returned to her statement only after I had eaten 3 bites. The first court conference took place during the 4th week. Daniel filed the certified survey, historical plat maps, the deed and chain of title records, utility documents, photographs, and notices exchanged by the parties. Maya submitted an affidavit explaining her field methods and reference points. Before we entered the courtroom, Valerie asked, "You will not answer for me if I lose my words? I can sit beside you and pass you whatever document you request. I will not answer a question that belongs to you unless you ask me to." All right. The judge reviewed the filings. Harris's attorney argued that the developer had relied on an earlier plan and needed access to complete its site review. The judge asked whether the developer had a recorded right to enter Valerie's property. Not a recorded right, Your Honor, the attorney admitted. Then access must be arranged by agreement or lawful order. When the judge asked whether the boundary itself was disputed, Daniel explained that the developer had not produced a competing certified survey. The judge ordered that no entry, removal, grading, or interference with the utility line could occur while the matter was pending. She then asked Valerie whether anything important had been missed. Valerie stood. Her hand shook once against the folder, then steadied. "The utility records show continuous maintenance and service," she said, placing them before the judge. "I am asking that the existing easement be protected until the recorded documents are reviewed." The judge read the page and included the utility connection in the temporary order. Outside, Valerie held her coffee with both hands. "You did not need me," I said. "I needed the survey, the records, Daniel, Maya, and the question you asked me before we started." "Which question?" "Whether I wanted you to act or wanted to act myself." "Both can be true." "They are." 3 days later, Harris's attorney proposed a private agreement. The developer would withdraw the boundary claim if Valerie signed a release, accepted a revised access arrangement, and agreed not to oppose future work near the rear lot. Daniel read it carefully. The agreement did not state an amount of money. It did not need to. The price was Valerie's silence and permanent uncertainty around her own property. "If I sign this, the survey becomes something I paid to obtain for someone else," she said. "It also would not be recorded as a boundary confirmation," Daniel replied. Valerie folded the draft. "Then I do not want it." She asked Daniel to prepare a counterproposal requiring the certified survey and easement to be recorded, the developer to respect the legal boundary, and the site plan to be amended. It was her position, not a decision made for her. The 5th and 6th weeks became a disciplined sequence of filings and responses. Maya answered technical questions from the opposing consultant. Daniel reviewed every sentence. Valerie checked every exhibit against the original documents. I updated the illustrative site map whenever a fact changed, never allowing it to carry more authority than Maya's certified survey. On a rainy evening, we worked at the kitchen table. The house smelled of coffee and toasted bread. Barnaby slept across a stack of folders, forcing us to work around him. "He has chosen the least useful place in the room," I said. "He is protecting the documents. He is shedding on them." "That is his method." Valerie moved the folders instead of waking him. Her sleeve brushed my wrist. "When this is over," she said, "you can stop coming over every day." "I know. You say that as if it does not bother you." "It bothers me." She waited. "I do not want to be needed only because a developer sent a letter," I said. "I want to know you when the papers are put away, but I will not turn your crisis into the reason you have to choose me." Her hand rested flat on the table. "And if I choose you? Then I will still expect you to disagree with me when I am wrong." "That may be difficult. You are wrong with great confidence." "It is one of my lesser qualities." She smiled, then returned to the documents. At the end of the 7th week, the court scheduled a final status hearing. Harris had not produced a competing certified survey. The county planning staff recommended that the developer revise its site plan and remove the proposed work from Valerie's parcel. Daniel prepared a consent order requiring the boundary and easement documents to be recorded, prohibiting unauthorized entry, and requiring an amended site plan. He asked Valerie what she wanted. "I want the record corrected. I want the utility line protected. I want the greenhouse and retaining wall left alone. I want the developer to revise its plan without making me sign away rights I already own." "And if Harris offers another private agreement?" "I will read it, then I will decide." The final hearing took place on the first Friday of the 8th week. Valerie carried the evidence binder herself. Maya brought the field book and certified survey. Daniel carried the proposed order. Before entering the courtroom, Valerie stopped beside a window. Young trees stood along the courthouse walk, each tied to a narrow stake. "Do they stay tied forever?" she asked. "No. If you force roots to take by holding everything rigid, the tree never learns to stand. You prepare the soil, protect the first growth, and let the roots settle." She looked at me. "Some rules travel." Inside, the judge reviewed the order. Harris's attorney objected to the recording requirement and requested access near the fence. The judge turned to Valerie. "Do you understand the proposed order?" "Yes." "Do you agree to it?" Valerie stood. She placed the certified survey on the lectern, then set the historical plat map beside it. "I agree to the order as written," she said. "I do not agree to language that creates an unrecorded right to enter my property. The certified survey identifies the boundary. The recorded easement identifies the utility connection. The developer can revise its site plan around those facts." Harris's attorney said his client needed reasonable access. Valerie turned toward him. "Reasonable access can be requested through a written agreement or a court order. It cannot be created by moving a fence line on a drawing." The judge asked Maya to explain her reference points. Maya described the municipal monument, iron pipe, measurements, occupation line, and comparison with the historical plat. Daniel presented the chain of title and utility records. The judge asked whether Harris had a competing certified survey. No, Your Honor. A competing title analysis? No. The attorney accepted the order with one clarification. The developer would not enter the disputed parcel without written permission or another court order. Valerie looked at Daniel. He nodded. I accept that clarification, she said. The judge signed the consent order. The survey and easement documents would be recorded with the county. The developer would amend its plan, and the temporary protections would remain until the filing was complete. Valerie sat down, her shoulders lowered in small releases. She closed the binder and placed both palms on its cover. Outside, Maya reminded her to keep the original field photographs with the certified survey. Daniel gave her a copy of the signed order. You did not just survive that, I said. She looked at the binder. I was terrified. You still presented the evidence? Because the evidence was there. You made sure it was there. She studied me. I want coffee. A sound legal remedy. We walked to a cafe across from the courthouse. Maya joined us for one cup, then left. Valerie and I sat near the window with 2 mugs between us and the signed order in a folder on the chair. I keep expecting another letter, she said. There may be another letter. She stopped stirring her coffee. You were supposed to tell me there will not be. I cannot promise that. I can promise we will read it before it decides what happens. You are difficult to comfort. I am improving. Slowly. Roots take time. Her expression softened. There it is again. It is a reliable rule. It is beginning to sound like a personal promise. Maybe it is. When we returned to the neighborhood, the backhoe was gone. Valerie called the recorder's office the following Monday and confirmed that the survey and easement documents had been filed. She sent the recorded copies to Daniel, Maya, the county planning office, and Harris's attorney. Then she carried a broom into the backyard. I am removing the orange paint, she said. The county may want photographs of the original markings. I already took them. She swept while I repaired the section of cedar fence the crew had loosened. We did not rebuild the fence on the surveyed line. Valerie chose to leave it 3 inches inside her property because it belonged to the history of the yard, even if it was not the legal boundary. At the greenhouse, she replaced the lifted paver and planted rosemary along the wall. I adjusted the drainage so water would move away from the foundation. Barnaby supervised from the retaining wall. The 8th week ended on a cool Saturday evening. I was adjusting the hammock when I heard the cedar gate unlatch. Valerie stepped through carrying 2 ceramic mugs of coffee. The documents were safe in her house. The greenhouse door closed squarely. The fence stood between the properties, but it no longer felt like a wall built to keep us apart. She set the mugs on the top rail and touched the braided rope with her fingertips. Is it still structurally sound? She asked. The anchor points are secure. The rope is not frayed. You inspect anything that carries weight. I do. She opened the gate wider. I have spent 8 weeks being told that every line around my life could be redrawn by someone with a cleaner folder. The record says otherwise. The record helps. So does letting someone stand beside me without taking the decision away. I stepped toward the hammock and left space for her to choose the distance. Valerie tested the rope gently. Think it can hold both of us? She asked. The question carried the same playful edge as her smile on the first Sunday, but now there was no legal envelope in her hand and no fear behind the words. It is rated for 600 pounds, I said. The oak branch is healthy. The anchors are deep, and the rope is in good condition. She looked up. You answered the hammock? You asked about the hammock. I asked about both. I held out my hand but did not move closer until she placed hers in it. Then yes, I said, I think it can hold both of us. You took 8 weeks to answer a simple question. It was not a simple question. No, it was not. We sat with room between us at first. The braided rope settled beneath our combined weight, creaking once and becoming still. I kept 1 foot on the ground so she could leave whenever she wanted. You can put your foot up, she said. Are you sure? I am sure. I lifted my foot. The hammock swayed gently beneath us. 6 months after the order was recorded, the developer's revised plan had been approved without work on Valerie's parcel. Her audio studio remained open. The greenhouse was full of rosemary, basil, and young climbing roses. The retaining wall held through winter because the drainage had been corrected and the roots had room to spread. The cedar fence remained, but we added a wider gate between the yards. Valerie chose the design. I built a stone path connecting her back steps to my porch, stopping it short of the property line until she approved the final placement. "You made a presentation for a path," she said when I brought 3 options and a scale drawing. "It carries foot traffic. It carries coffee. That is a more important load." Barnaby inspected the path, stopped halfway, and sat down. "He approves," Valerie said. "He is demanding a second opinion." She bumped my shoulder with hers. "You are becoming difficult to live with." "You have a gate." "I do." That evening, we carried coffee to the hammock. Valerie settled beside me, and the braided rope moved under us with the quiet confidence of something properly anchored. Roots still surfaced after heavy rain, leaves still gathered in the corners. The fence still marked a line that mattered on paper, even though it no longer separated our daily lives. I had once believed permanence meant keeping everything exactly where I put it. Valerie taught me that a boundary could protect a home without becoming a prison, and that trust arrived through records checked carefully, questions asked before action, hands that helped without taking control, and the patience to prepare the soil before expecting roots to settle. The end. Core lesson. Healthy love does not erase boundaries or take decisions away. It makes room for honesty, evidence, patience, and 2 people working side by side until safety becomes something they can feel in ordinary moments. Green flag. The strongest sign of healthy love is not dramatic rescue. It is asking before helping, respecting the other person's agency, keeping promises, sharing practical work, and staying present after the crisis has passed. Like and subscribe. If you enjoyed Rowan and Valerie's story, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who believes love is built through trust and everyday effort. What small act of support has made you feel truly safe with someone?